engine we adore is a really useful engine, you know. 'Cause the Pet Controller, he told him so. Now he's got a punchline to call his very own. He's the really useful engine we adore. He's the one. He's the number one. Thomas the Tank Engine. He's the really useful engine we adore.
Ever since Arry and Bert had gotten in trouble for bullying Neville the other day, they were forced to work with a steamy that Tom has planned to bring over from the mainland until they learn how to get along with them. Even though Arry and Bert didn't like this, they decided to meet a new engine anyway. Arry and Bert arrived at Vickerstown Station where Tom Hat and Wilbur were waiting. As new engine arrived from the mainland. He is painted dark red with 6 wheels and striped buffers, and also a number on the side of his boiler. Ah, Arry and Bert, I can see you came here to meet a new engine you're going to be working with at Napper Yard for a couple of days. This is... What's your name? He asked the engine. 16, replied the engine. Oh, come on. That's only a number, not a name. Now come on, tell me, what's your real name really? The engine looked over at Wilbert. It's 16, sir, he whispered. His real name is actually 16. Oh, really? Well, I sure do apologize, 16. But having a number as a name is kind of weird. No offense, really, 16. But it's kind of true, though. 16 rolled his eyes and didn't really care. Arry and Bert thought it was funny, but they tried not to laugh or make fun of 16 for having a number for a name. What's so funny? Asked 16 crossly to them. Oh, it's nothing, replied Arry, giggling a bit. Yeah, giggled Bert. Nothing at all, 16. 16 raised his eyebrow. Anyways, continues the Topham Hat, you're brought here to the island to work with Arry and Bert for a couple of days at Napper Yard. Would you do that? But 16 was disinterested. I prefer to work around metal, he grunted. Excuse me, 16, but what was that again? I said I prefer to work around metal. You know, steel, sparks, fire, and lava. Ooh, just like us, whispered Bert to Arry. Oh, very interesting. But you see, I don't need you to work at a smelter's yard. I need you to work at Napper Yard with Arry and Bert for a couple of days. But before you do so, I want you to go to the steamworks to get yourself checked over just in case. Arry and Bert, will you kindly escort 16 there? Yes, sir, replied Arry and Bert. And together they rolled away, escorting 16 to the steamworks. At 16, Arry and Bert arrived at the Soda Steamworks. The steamworks was busy. Henry was getting a new coat of green paint. Hero was getting his pistons fixed. Stanley was getting his firebox cleaned out. And Stafford was getting his muddy battery replaced. Then Victor rolled up. Hello, my friends, he whistled. And who's this? This here's 16, Victor, replied Arry. He has come from the mainland to work with us for a couple of days. At Napper Yard, that is, added Bert. Ah, I see. Well, 16, you are very dirty from working the scrap yards and steelworks. As always, replied 16. Then come this way to the engine wash. I'll have you clean and spiffy in no time. Pretty soon, 16 was all cleaned up from the engine wash. He shined and sparkled in the sunshine, and Victor was very impressed. You look good, 16, he remarked. Now you're ready to start your first day here on Sodor working with Arry and Bert. 16 didn't really care and puffed out the steamworks. And Arry and Bert rolled after him. Arry and Bert didn't like working in Knapford Yard that much. Because when it comes to working in places like the yard, they have to work with steamies. For 16, on the other hand, he's a little, similar to say the least. 'Cause like Arry and Bert, he is grumpy, rude, disinterested, and didn't like doing other jobs besides working in a steelworks or scrapyard. So far, 16 really hates his new job, and Arry and Bert understand how he was feeling. It was the ending of 16's first day on Sodor as the sun began to set as 16 got to the turntable where Arry and Bert are. And 16 didn't enjoy it at all. Just then, Wilbert arrived with Diesel following from behind. "Hello," he whistled. "I came here to tell 16 about his first day." "So? How is it, 16? "Terrible," he replied. "I had to deal with 2 cheeky tank engines at the yard today, and work at the coaling plant with Logan." "Oh," said Wilbert. "Well, that's not that bad. I mean, working in a yard ain't like working at a steelworks or scrapyard, but it's quite fun though." "Not to me it isn't," grumbled 16. "Look, I've worked with steel my entire life at the steelworks over on the mainland, and that's the only thing I love doing. Nothing else." "I understand," replied Wilbert, "but it's sometimes good to try new things, though." "Anyways," said Bert, "why is Diesel with you?" "Oh," said Wilbert, "so Tom has sent him to work with me in the lumber mill, as for his, punishment. Right, Diesel?" "Yes, for bullying Neville the other day." "Anyways, mind we stay here for the night?" But 16, Arry, and Bert were already asleep. "I guess that's a yes," chuckled Wilbert. "Good night, Diesel." "Good night, Wilbert." And Wilbert and Diesel closed their eyes and quickly fell asleep. The next day, Arry and Bert were seen working at Knapford Yard again, and they were still feeling very upset about it. For 16, though, he was very happy because he realizes that today was his last day of working at Knapford Yard. As he rolled away from the water tower, he bumped some troublesome trucks very hard, and they nearly crashed off the track into Elizabeth, who was passing through. "Whoa, slow down there, boy," she tooted. "And take your time, will you?" This gave 16 an idea. He said quietly to himself. "If I cause trouble like that, Sir Topham Hatt will definitely send me away back to the mainland. That way, I'll also go back to the steelworks there and get out of here once and for all." And 16 started his plan to cause confusion and delay. As the day pressed on, a few engines were waiting at Knapford Station for the trains, and 16 is the engine responsible for that. But he refuses to go out of Timot's sheds to do the work as a result of causing confusion and delay, so Sir Topham Hatt will send him back to the mainland. "Where are my coaches?" wheezed Gordon crossly. "My passengers are waiting." "I don't know," replied Edward, "but we're all going to be late. Very late indeed." Stanley noticed this, and he immediately got to work on fetching the engine's trains. By the time the engines departed with the trains, they were very late indeed. Later on, Sir Tom had spoke sternly to 16. "I don't know what you're up to, 16, he would say. "And if you don't do your job well and don't do it right, I'm afraid I'll have to send you packing to the mainland. Do you understand?" But 16 didn't reply. He just rolled his eyes and puffed back to Knapford Yard. 16 began to insult many engines in the yard, saying mean things and calling them names. Until he noticed some boxcars on a siding nearby, he had a better and badder idea. He puffed around the bend to where the boxcars are, buffered them up, and pulled away with them in tow. Meanwhile, Arry and Bert were at the brown turntable, already done finishing their work, until they heard 16's whistle. 16 zoomed in with the boxcars and shoved them into Fergus, knocking him off the rails. The other engines couldn't believe what 16 just did. Even Arry and Bert couldn't believe it. As the accident that 16 caused was being cleaned up, Sir Tom had heard what 16 did this time, and he was even more furious than ever. 16, you have caused considerable confusion and delay. I thought you'd be a good engine for the job, but I realized I was wrong. You are clearly not a good fit for Sodor. The Flying Scotsman will escort you to the mainland immediately, and I found a steelworks over there that's willing to give you another chance. Scotsman, take him away." And 16 and the Flying Scotsman rolled away towards Vicarstown. But 16 was very happy that he can now go back to doing his original jobs on the mainland. "What about us, sir?" asked Arry and Bert. "Oh, for you two? Well, let's just say that both of you have worked very hard at Knapford Yard, even though 16 did cause a lot of confusion and delay. So both of you will go back home. In the meantime, I best find another engine to work at Knapford Yard until Stafford gets back from the steamworks." And Sir Tom had drove away to find another engine to work at Knapford Yard, leaving a proud Arry and Bert behind.